am proposing an across-the-board income tax reduction, especially for middle-income Americans. This will lead to millions of new and really good-paying jobs. The rich will pay their fair share, but no one will pay so much that it destroys jobs or undermines our ability as a nation to compete.
They can scream, holler, rail against the machine all they want, but those Republicans who despise everything Donald Trump stands for still have to begin every conversation with this fact. He beat every challenger that was thrown at him. He received the number of votes necessary. He is the Republican presidential candidate for president of these United States. That is the cold, hard fact that nothing short of Trump himself chucking the entire thing at the last minute and walking away to rebuild his brand and go back to reality TV will change. Rumors being spread by those people and plenty of others who are hoping that that might be the case, but they have no evidence whatsoever. It's even close to fantasy, much less reality. But they are determined to continue trying to the very last instant, that very last second, that they can seek to change minds of people before they step into that ballot box, before they fill out that early voter card, provide an alternative that even if this person doesn't get elected, he or she would steal enough votes from Trump to block any chance he has to become president. Whew. Plenty of missteps, false starts, gaffes, but they believe they have the guy. And despite the fact almost no one knows who he is, no matter he has no history of public service, and despite the fact this is August, they're moving forward with full confidence they have an answer they believe America needs. Needless to say, their excitement is not shared by everybody, and for that matter could turn out to be just another bust from those seeking the anti-Trump. And you will have a chance to drop your opinion on this and other stories. Get on the line right now, 1-877-Newsmax, 1-877-639-7629. Welcome back, the syndicated columnist. You read his commentaries at Newsmax.com. University of Maryland professor of business and political commentator Peter Morici, joined by executive director of the American Jobs Alliance, recently signed on as economy and trade advisor to Donald Trump, Curtis Ellis. Gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. We are going to talk a lot of the economy here in the next few minutes, but I want to get both your opinions on what has happened today. First of all, Curtis, let me come to you. Evan McMullin is the chief policy director for Republicans in the U.S. House of Representatives. He will launch an independent conservative bid for president. Are you one of those people who think that this has any chance at all of succeeding, or quite frankly, is this just another massive waste of time?
Well, maybe he's looking to boost the number of Twitter followers and Facebook friends he has, because I don't think he can even get on the ballot in most states. This is not a serious effort. He's venting his own frustration and his own confusion. I don't put much stock in it whatsoever.
So, Peter, if it's not a serious effort, do we just need, seriously, do the Trump people need to fire back at people like McMullin and anybody else and say, come on, time to go? Even the Republican hierarchy needs to say, just stop this nonsense, because you're not going to steal enough votes for Donald Trump. He is the nominee.
I think Donald Trump should just stay on message. He started that today with a very fine speech on the economy, and he was very disciplined and very competent sounding. And I think he just needs to stay on that message and ignore this. This is absurd. Pat Paulson ran for president, and so did Alfred E. Newman, who was a cartoon character. And I can't make up my mind that whether this living, breathing man who serves as a staffer at the House of Representatives in mid-August deciding to run for president is truly Pat Paulson, who was a comedian, or Alfred E. Newman, who was merely a cartoon character.
I think the only thing that's a shame that Pat Paulson is not running because he's no longer living. Now, although let's look at it this way. Somebody may dig him up yet. Here's the second piece of news before we get to the economy. Peter, I will stay with you. Late today, the New York Times reporting a letter signed by 50 top GOP national security officials opposing Donald Trump. We have people like the former director of national intelligence, John Negroponte, former NSA director Michael Hayden, former Homeland Security Secretary Michael Chertoff, and Tom Ridge. This is a hammer at Donald Trump. Would you not say that this is something he is going to need a lot to come back from, because these are heavy-ranking people?
Absolutely. Donald Trump had a very good day until that letter came out. The news cycle was going to give him favorable coverage. For example, I was scheduled to appear on CNN at 7:30 to give a positive appraisal of Donald Trump's speech, period. I was called just 10 minutes before this broadcast began and told that I was canceled because they were going to cover this letter. That tells us a great deal about the biased content at CNN and the trouble that this is creating. He is being kept from competing by the Republican cabal. The reality is win, lose, or draw. Each side has a team, the red team and the blue team. And as long as one of those two teams is in control of politics, the other, even on the out, because of the potential to again be on the in, tends to have a great deal of prestige, can make a great deal of money. Look at the Clintons, and so on and so forth. If Trump were to win, it absolutely breaks that duopoly. So that's what's happening here. That letter is absurd.
Curtis, let me get to you on this because Peter used the phrase biased content. And of course, we have seen whether it's left, right, CNN, MSNBC, Fox, it makes no difference. People come up with news at exactly the right moment. There are those who would argue that this letter calling Trump the most reckless president in American history is simply politics. You pick your spot, you pick your time. Donald Trump is on an upswing. You want to just nail him and crush him back down. Isn't this just politics at its worst or best?
Well, that's exactly right. They timed this letter to try to distract the news media, to try to provide a counter narrative, so they're not talking about the economy. Anytime the people are focused on the economy, Hillary loses. So you've got the Washington insiders, and really their party affiliations are irrelevant. It's the inside Washington party versus the rest of the world, the rest of the country. And the inside Washington party desperately wants Donald Trump out of the picture. So they dropped this bucket of marbles to try to throw him off stride. And I wouldn't be surprised if the whole McMullin thing was that too. They were hoping to bait him into responding to this clown from the foreign relations staff. And he didn't do that. So then they dropped this other bomb. But it's not serious.
Aaron Burnett walked right into it and played into their hand and has become their stalking horse. Instead, they will cover Donald Trump's speech tonight with a limited on-set panel of usual CNN regulars who will diminish its importance and so forth.
Now let's talk about that, Peter, because let's talk about that short time that we have. Let's get to that, because I want to get to the speech that Donald Trump held today. Some people, like Media Matters, very biased, is talking about every specific point and why it's wrong, why it's overblown. But first, let me come to you, gentlemen, and get this opinion here. To you first, then, Peter, the speech itself. Specifically, there's a lot in there about TPP, a lot in there about NAFTA, but isn't it fair to say that if Donald Trump stays on the tax message and tells people that the Democrats will tax you right back into the Stone Ages, this is the thing that the people want to hear and they will react to?
I think they will react to the fact that Hillary Clinton is now intent on taxing the middle class. I think it's important to recognize today that Donald Trump stitched together a very coherent statement on the economy. He drew a sharp contrast with Hillary Clinton, but he also put forward a very coherent, well-reasoned plan. Now, are all the details there? No. Is there work to be done? Yes. His tax plan, for example, scores very badly. It was very amateurishly written, and I expect the new economic team, with assistance from their networks, will now come up with a better plan, one consistent with Republican tradition of compressing rates, eliminating deductions, and one that is more revenue reasonable. So I think he did very well with that. See, the most important task that Donald Trump has not accomplished is to make people be convinced that he has the personality to be president. Today, you didn't see the talk show host. You didn't see the reality star. What you saw was the executive that did make money by focusing on the problems at hand and coming up with solutions. That's how Donald Trump got rich, and that's how he can turn the economy around.
Let's do a couple of things here then, Curtis. I only have a couple of minutes left here. In your take on the tax plan today, is it not fair to say that, as Peter even alluded to, there are holes there? There are still a number of things that have to be filled in. But when Trump talks about NAFTA, TPP, Hillary Clinton, that had one opinion, changed her mind years later, that these are the things that he has got to focus on. Do you think, though, I hate to ask this, but I've got to, Curtis, because you're a pro at this, that he has the discipline to stay on the economic message and get away from all the nonsense?
I think he does. He absolutely knows that the economy is the issue. That's the winning issue. You notice today there were some professional hecklers in the audience. He didn't take the bait. He's now up against the wall, and he knows there's no room for error, and he's going to stick with it. As for the tax plan that Peter alluded to, and you did as well, look, he's laying out some general directions here, some general principles. As he said before, when this hits the floor of Congress, there are going to be changes made. His job is to make sure it's in this general direction, compressing rates, reducing rates, encouraging businesses to invest in America. That's got to be the overarching message, the direction, that whatever plan comes out the other end of the sausage-making machine, it's got to stick to those principles. He did a very good job today of laying out the principles and the direction of his economic policy.
Gentlemen, we are unfortunately all out of time. Peter, I'll give you 15 seconds. Go.
He needs to do more than that, both on taxation, trade, and regulation. He needs to table more coherent plans that score better. With regard to trade, he has to tell us exactly what he's going to do with China to get them to stop manipulating their currency. On regulation, on his website, he essentially talks about an efficacy test, doing it right, doing it cleanly, doing it efficiently, so we don't pay too much for regulation, but we accomplish our goals of consumer, environmental, and business protection.
I got to make that the last note. We're out of time. Peter Morici, Curtis Ellis, gentlemen, thanks so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. A very quick note. According to the Boston Herald tonight, the parents of 2 Benghazi victims have sued Hillary Clinton, arguing that she caused the death of their sons and later defamed them in statements made to the media, according to court documents. We will talk about that as the night goes on. Quick programming note. If you watch Newsmax TV on DirecTV, we're moving our primetime shows to channel 366 in another week. You can begin watching us there now. Check us out on 366. And for Comcast and Time Warner cable customers, you can catch us nightly on JLTV. Check your local listings. After the break, Donald Trump swears this coming election will be fixed. We'll talk with someone who understands that election process, and we'll continue to follow this story as well. Late breaking from the Boston Herald. Stay with us on the Hardline.